It seems like Kendrick Lamar is working on a new album, and this is coming to us after we heard a preview of a new Kendrick song in the Not Like Us video, and after we've been hearing from close collaborators that he is cooking a new album, which is hopefully slated to drop in 2024. So in this video, we're going to be breaking down everything that we know so far about this new Kendrick album, so make sure to smash that subscribe button to stay up to date with all of these new updates. But Ant, let's get into this, bro. It's a very exciting time as we're massive Kendrick Lamar fans, and it seems like shit's heating up, bro. So take us through the first indication that we got of this album from a close collaborator.
Well, it wasn't in 2024. It was actually in 2022 when Kendrick Lamar dropped Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It was an exciting year for Kendrick. Obviously, he comes back after a 5-year hiatus, drops a double album. Everyone's fed, everyone's happy. But what people didn't expect is we got word of a new album only 3 months after the release date of Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, and this comes to us from Soundwave. So he went on an interview, and he had said this: "We're starting on the next one now. That's never going to change," all the way from the Kendrick Lamar EP, insinuating that they were working on a new project, and that raised many questions, right? It was like, well, he's been missing for 5 years, didn't necessarily drop anything, there was no solo studio album, and now all of a sudden, you guys are on to the next? You guys just gave us 19 new songs, so... Yeah. Take me back to 2022, Lou, because I remember we posted this up on Twitter. It set flames to the community. Everyone was super excited. What did you think at this point? Like, just the idea that now there was going to be another installment in the studio album catalog of Kendrick Lamar.
I mean, I'm always going to get excited over, like, news of a new Kendrick Lamar album, but I didn't think too much of it in the moment because if you go back to every single album era of Kendrick Lamar, it's a known thing that as soon as he drops an album, he immediately begins to work on the next one. Like when he was on tour for Good Kid, Mad City, he was already working on To Pimp a Butterfly and took the years that it took to craft that masterpiece. So ultimately, it was a good sign that he was already getting those creative juices flowing, but it wasn't really too telling about a timeline. But let's keep on going. Let's take it to 2024 now, when we got a rumor from the Rory and Mal podcast. So what ended up happening is that during the midst of the battle, they were speaking about Kendrick's response to Drake's push-ups, which hadn't come out yet at that point. And Mal claimed that a little bird told him it was taking so long because Kendrick was saving the diss track for a new album, which would drop in May of 2024. And obviously, that wasn't the case. The album didn't drop in May. But if there is any truth about what Mal was saying, maybe the album was being cooked, maybe it's still in development. So it was a decent indication, but I feel like we could sort of throw that out the window now that a couple of months have passed, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of people were buzzing on Twitter, right? Because that was a big conspiracy theory within the entire feud, and people were questioning, well, why is Kendrick taking so long? And I feel like this was maybe a piece of information that was thrown into the ruffle to be able to maybe cause more confusion and maybe add more pressure on Kendrick and to spin narratives. But we just wanted to cover this basically because it was a big piece of information this year regarding a new album, and it wasn't the first time for 2024 that we'd hear about this new album. But let's continue going on with this. Let's go on to Terrace Martin. So Terrace has been a big part of this early pre-rollout. And I want to say that because when you look at the way things have developed, I feel like since Terrace Martin has started to speak about this new album, that's when everyone started to take this seriously. Because when you start to look at the credits that he's produced on, right? You look at Mad City, Loyalty, go on to Pimp a Butterfly. Yes, full of credits. He's been a very close collaborator. So when a fan asked Terrace Martin on X, who's locked in with Dot right now, he answered by saying all of us. And then that officially confirmed that there was new music being worked on in 2024 with someone that had a close hand in previous studio albums with Kendrick Lamar. But it doesn't stop there. Then, when speaking on an Instagram Live on June 4th, he said this: "Let me tell you all the records I'm excited for. I'm excited for YG's album. I'm excited for Mustard's album. I'm excited for a lot of people, but there's 2 albums. I'm going crazy. I can't wait till they drop. Roddy Ricch album, and whenever Kendrick drops his album, I'm excited for those two Compton artists. It's like I'm excited, so much shit bubbling, you know." So this happened weeks within each other, and people were going crazy because at this point in time, it's like, well, you're not having anyone speak now. It's no longer Mal. It's Terrace Martin, someone that's possibly working on this new album. So let me ask you this now. Once you got this information, Lou, were you even more hyped? And did you finally buy into the fact that you might be getting a new Kendrick Lamar album?
100%, because I feel like production-wise as well, like Terrace's presence was missed on Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers, because that was the only album he didn't have any contributions on. So to get an amazing like live musician like him saying that he's cooking with Kendrick on another album once again got me super hyped. And I feel like we all had that speculation in our mind that wasn't based on much of like, okay, Kendrick is having a fucking massive year in 2024. He just won the battle. Like, something's got to be coming. And then this just sort of reassured us that, like, oh shit, we might be onto something. Kendrick is definitely in the studio. He's cooking. He's got a lot in stock. So I just think that it sort of like confirmed a lot of people's suspicions and it got the rollout moving. But what's interesting is that Punch, the president of TDE, of course, replied to someone's question on Twitter in May of 2024. And it was about at what point will Kendrick maybe pass Tupac in the all-time rankings, and he had this to say. He said, I think he's very close to passing Pac. I think he checks off more boxes now. Tupac's impact is so crazy and still being felt today, but the next album might push him past for me. So when you hear that, you could interpret that as like Punch just being like, well, listen, Kendrick always drops fire albums, so no matter what the next one is, it might be enough to surpass Tupac. But the way that, you know, a fan might interpret this is being like, well, maybe he's heard bits and pieces of this album. Maybe he knows what's going on. Maybe he knows what he was doing. It's so good.
Yeah, he knew what he was doing here.
Yeah.
That's why going into this piece of information, what starts to happen around this May and June point is that there's a lot of word coming out now from official sources that there's probably a new album that's locked and loaded, and once it's heard, wow, it's gonna shake the earth, and I feel like it's gonna break the internet. That's coming from Terrace Martin, and that's coming from Punch.
Yep.
So now we're not talking about, again, these are two very reliable sources. They're doing their teasing, and they're getting the fans hyped up. But let's go on to a bit less of a reliable source, someone that maybe had a bit of a part to play within the whole feud. But
well, I think he's reliable because he was also at the pop-out, right?
He was
invited to the show.
He was there, absolutely, but he kind of got a bit of information wrong within the feud itself, and whatever the case may be.
I think he's still pretty reliable.
But whatever the case may be, DJ Head, of course, he's close to Kendrick's camp. And when he was on Bootleg Kev's podcast, he was asked about the possibility of a new album, and he said, I guess so. And then he said, I wouldn't be surprised if we got something soon, but I don't know. So it's starting to happen here. You're looking at May and June, and now there's multiple sources that are starting to cook up. And you start to see that, well, this is really within the realms of a possibility.
Yeah, when you listen to him speaking, you're thinking to yourself, well, okay, maybe he's hinting at it. He's not going to come out and confirm it, though, right? Like, even if he was privy to that information, I don't think that Kendrick would want DJ Head to announce that an album is being made or that an album is coming out soon. So I didn't take this as him shutting it down. I just took it as him, like, maybe, again, adding to the teases that Punch and Terrace started without really confirming anything and still leaving us guessing. But the last collaborator that we got word from was The Alchemist, and this was the most recent one. This was on June 27th, 2024. He was getting out of the airport. TMZ decided to bust balls a little bit, and they started talking to him about the rap battle. And, of course, he produced Meet the Grahams. And he was asked about the possibility of a new Kendrick album in 2024, and he said, I think he's going to drop an album this year. He said he doesn't have to, but he thinks that he will drop an album this year. And he also said in that mini interview, I'm just sending him a bunch of fucking beats right now. So if
that's encouraging.
I'm sorry, if that doesn't tell you that something is being fucking cooked, I don't know what will.
So you have The Alchemist, you know, you have Terrace Martin, you have Punch, you have DJ Head. You have a lot of people talking about this new album. So now this is it for the rumors. This is it for the sources that kind of spoke about everything publicly. So who knows what happens at this point? This is what we know so far as public knowledge goes.
Yeah.
So whatever develops after this video, we'll keep you guys updated with it. But let's go to July 4th. So of course we get the Not Like Us music video, and we spoke about this in the breakdown, but we got some new music previewed. And this was very interesting because the quotes on Twitter went crazy. People were saying that, well, this is going to be like the All Right situation where you had the maybe first 10 seconds of the video previewing new music, and then after that, it cuts to the All Right music video, but you don't really get anything after that, you know? And it kind of ends there. That song was never dropped. It was never released. Is it just a teaser? But some people interpreted it in a different way, where it was like, is he teasing a single? Is he teasing new music? Is this going to be a cutoff of a new album? So, guys, let me know in the comments section, how do you feel about it? And do you think it's going to make a new album? And Lou, I want to ask you about that, all right? So now you've had some time to sit with the music video. You've been thinking about the snippet probably, excuse me. Do you think you're going to see that song at some point in the future? Or do you think it's just going to be vaulted and that's it, that's all?
I think Kendrick's a marketing genius. I think that he knew how many eyes would land on that Not Like Us video. And again, just based on all the rumblings, it's so hard not to think that an album is coming very shortly. So because of that, I feel like he tested the waters. He got people's excitement up another notch by previewing that music. And it's really exciting too, because people were sort of like trying to decipher, is this a Mustard beat? Is this a Neptunes beat? It does have that West Coast bounce to it. So we'll have to see what ends up coming out of it. But I don't think it's going to be an all right situation where we got that song that I think people were titling it as like Dead Homies or Stand Down. Those are some titles bubbling around. But I don't think it'll be another case where he teases new music and doesn't end up actually coming out with it. But what about you? Did you interpret it differently, and what did you think of the music itself?
Well, it's definitely there. It's not like, hey, there was a little bit of a mistake in the editing and a certain file got dragged in. Well, fuck, now we premiered it and it has... No, it was previewed. It was previewed on purpose. No one, got heated that it was previewed, at least from Kendrick's camp or the labels. They said, keep it up, and the conversation's been going on about it. So, when I look at it from that standpoint, they want us to hear it. It's not like they didn't want me to hear it. I could hear it. I could go access it on Kendrick Lamar's YouTube. I could go on Twitter. There's snippets. There's conversation. Whatever the case may be. So, I think that it's not necessarily confirmed that it's going to drop, but it's a good indication that they are testing the waters with a new sound.
Yeah.
Artists often do this. They'll either leak their own music through different sources to be able to see the public reception before it drops, or they'll do it themselves through previews, through IG Lives. In this case, like maybe Kendrick Lamar just did through a new music video.
So how did you feel about it musically?
We'll see what happens. I loved it. I told you, I loved it within the video.
Yeah.
I mean, that West Coast sound is just, it's fucking contagious. I mean, you listen to it once and you want to go back to it time and time again. There's a certain bounce that can be replicated with this type of sound. You can't replicate that.
You can't.
And I think that the fact that Kendrick Lamar is really pushing that right now is amazing for the West Coast, and it's going to be cool to see how that places within his discography. I think that's a crazy conversation. It's like, well, is this going to be the first like pure like West Coast Bay Area sound hip hop album that you're getting from Kendrick Lamar? Because GKMC has full of West Coast influence, obviously riding through the streets of Compton.
So does the Butterfly,
the G-Funk elements, like you have it all the way throughout. But if this is really like concentrated on that, he's doubling down on it. So how do you feel about that as a possibility for a new studio album?
I would love it, man. I think it makes the most sense right now. And speaking of the preview itself, he just sounds reborn, bro. He sounds like he has a battery in his back, and even through the lyrics, right? Like the first line is, I'm reincarnated, I was stargazing. Like it sounds like this battle and this victory put the battery in his back to sort of like
put him back into a hungry mode.
Morph into a new version of himself and a guy that wants to take over the rap game in any way possible. So that's sort of what I got out of it. But let's speak about this album rollout itself, because some people might be thinking, well, I won't believe that an album is being worked on until I get the official rollout, until I hear from Kendrick that this album is being cooked. But we spoke about this off camera, and we believe that the rollout's already started, and now we're in the midst of it right now.
I think so. I genuinely think so. Whether this rollout decides to go on for another year or so, you're in it.
Because let's talk about it. You get the pop-out concert. You get the Not Like Us music video.
I think it started with the beef.
Of course, it started with the beef.
I think
unintentionally, I feel like that started the rollout, and then they knew that they were in that zone.
I don't know, man.
So
any smart,
I just want to take us through.
Lou, I want to say this, okay? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Any smart man, like anyone with at least a bit of decency in them, would understand that if you're gonna get into a rap battle with Drizzy Drake, like your name's gonna be hot. Whether it was, let's say, Drake or Meek Mill, I don't care. You name the rapper. Kendrick Lamar getting into a beef was gonna obviously like bring the exposure to a completely different level.
Explode.
Now, yeah, absolutely. Now, any smart businessman in that zone would say, "What are we doing here? drop a fucking album in this climate, it's gonna go absolutely crazy.
What I'm trying to say is that I don't think that like he planned to go and shoot shots at Drake and J. Cole with being like, oh, I'm gonna do this so that I could drop an album right after. Like I think like the cards just fell into place the way they were supposed to.
Yes, whether it was intentional or not, that's up for interpretation.
but
But I think that it's too smart of a move. Yes,
bro, Kendrick is being out, like he's outside right now, and we know that he always stays in his shell unless he's touring or he's promoting an album. So him doing the pop-out concert, him shooting and uploading the Not Like Us music video, there being billboards coming out in LA of the picture of everyone on stage, the pop-out with, the word us being written out. This is not a coincidence. Like, this is all being strategically orchestrated, and I think that a lot of us are missing that. And I think that ultimately another indicator to me is that it seems like the Baby Keem rollout has slowed down. And this is an album that almost a year ago, Baby Keem was talking like he was ready to drop it. So I feel like in the midst of the battle, in the midst of Kendrick gearing up to drop the album, that's probably why he didn't drop it. Now, that being said, we still have to be skeptical because everybody thought that Kendrick was going to drop right after Family Ties, Mr. Morale. Everyone said it within a couple of weeks or a couple of months, we're getting the announcement, he's going to fucking drop, and then he ends up taking like almost a year to drop it after that moment. So
would you say the Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers rollout started off with the Family Matters?
With the Family Ties?
Family Ties, excuse me.
Absolutely. Yeah. That was a big comeback moment, for sure.
It was.
That was his first verse in a while.
And not only that, but Baby Keem was also previewing his new album in the month of January.
Yeah.
So maybe there was just a change of heart as soon as they saw what had developed in the month of March. So
absolutely.
Ultimately, I think that, we're in the midst of a rollout, and regardless if it comes out this year, if it comes out next year, this is definitely playing into the marketing and the steam for new music.
Absolutely. And to go back to just that talk about what the album's going to be like, I think exactly as you said, it probably will be a celebration for the West Coast and a celebration for hip-hop culture. Like, that's what this whole era of Kendrick has been about, right? And I feel like going into a completely new chapter and era in his career, I think what's going to be the most important to him and his purpose is pushing forward traditions that he believes to be important for hip-hop to thrive. So themes of community, staying close to your roots, respecting the ones that came before, writing songs that increase your intellect and that are thought-provoking. Like, I feel like Kendrick is really going to set out those motives first and foremost. And how do you feel about him going full force with that and maybe featuring a bunch of West Coast artists and really honing in on that sound?
I mean, as long as the studio album experience is going to be excellent, which I don't doubt. He's never dropped even a mediocre project in his life. I think that I'm going to take it and I'm going to enjoy it regardless. So that's where I'm at with
The only thing is that, like, we know Kendrick and how usually all the songs in an album are connected to one big narrative. Do you feel like, obviously, like from a business standpoint, it makes the most sense to have Not Like Us as a lead single, but do you feel like maybe it wouldn't fit in with a narrative that he were to go with? Like, how it might be hard to connect a diss track to whatever album he's putting together.
Include it.
Maybe
he doesn't.
It's possible.
J. Cole didn't put Middle Child on the off season.
Very true.
That's a possibility. There's definitely artists that have huge singles and they just say, well, this is not going to fit the studio album experience and I'm going to roll the dice on other records.
Yeah.
And maybe it's going to get overplayed by that point and he just doesn't want to create that for the listening experience. So, or maybe he includes it as a bonus track, right? Because that's what he did with The Heart Part 5 with Mr. Morale and the Big Steppers. It wasn't woven into the track list, but it was released after the album had come out. So I'm not sure about that single, but I want to talk to you about potential date predictions, all right? Because this is something that we do often on the podcast. Just a bit of barbershop talk, all right? So, Lou, if you're a betting man, you have to open up your application right now and you had a nice spread in front of you, you know? Where are you putting your money? What are you doing with it? What are you saying?
I want to get optimistic with this one. I'm going to say, obviously, there's a big Eminem album on the way. I don't think he tries to swim around those waters, but I'm going to say early August. I really think it's going to be. I think he drops this year.
You think
100%.
He's going to do it early August?
There's no way that he chooses not to fulfill his reign. Like, this is like having an MVP season, averaging 60 points a fucking game, and then not winning the ring.
August
bro,
is a big statement.
Kendrick needs that album of the year ring, bro. Like, he could have one of the best years in hip hop history that any rapper has ever had if he does it. He needs to. What about you?
If he hasn't already, man, I don't know. Well, listen, okay, this is interesting. I remember we did a video back in 2022 because we did fucking so many of these episodes for Mr. Brown the Big Steppers before it came out. We were covering the entire rollout as it progressed. And got to 2022 and you had asked me. And I'd said, no, I don't think it's coming this year. And I said that just because I wanted to jinx it.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, we get it in the month of May. So I want to jinx it again. I don't think it's coming this year.
2025?
But I pray. I pray.
Yeah.
I think, listen, I think that's a safe bet.
It
If I
is.
was a betting man, I think that's a safe bet. But fuck, do I wish it came this year.
Absolutely,
I
bro.
think it would just revive everything once again. 2022 was carried by that album, Loki, to a certain extent for the mainstream.
Mm-hmm.
It was really like, it was at the forefront for a good portion of the year.
Yeah.
Think about it.
You also had Her Loss and Heroes
but
and
that
Villains.
only came out in the month of November and December.
For sure.
So they had maybe, 2 months of domination for 2022, and then those albums obviously did what they did in 2023. So I really want to see the album, but just to be safe, I'm going to say 2025.
But he needs to, bro. Think about like how amazing of a year this has been for the West Coast, right?
it's
Him
been
winning the
crazy.
battle, Schoolboy Q, Vince Staples, album of the year contenders, Mustard dropping an album, Roddy Ricch dropping an album. Kendrick has to fucking fulfill that reign. But guys, let us know down in the comments, when do you think Kendrick Lamar's new album will be dropping? And make sure to tap that notification bell so you don't miss another video. And we will be back if there is more news to discuss. Thank you guys for sticking until the end, and we'll see you soon. Peace.